Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics with a really fun project today. This cute little wall hanging is called Simply Snails, and I love that snails trail block coupled with these cute forget-me-not fabrics. This is from Windham. I love little projects like this, really kitschy. You can see we really just fell in love with that collection. The darling hanging towels, the folded star hot pads, and the round and circle. I love when you can have the whole look. I can just imagine this in the kitchen, dining room area combination. We have videos on the wall, the hanging towel, as well as the folded star hot pad. So fun, so fun. But today we're talking about how do we make this? And of course, Creative Grid, being who they are, came up with a tool that makes this so easy. So if you've ever struggled with the snail's trail block, you're going to see how easy this is. We were so excited to make the project. We actually did it in another colorway, another collection. This is called Chocolate Covered Cherries. And you can see how this is a completely different look. Same exact block, same exact little mini quilt. So what we'll be going through today is how do we use that tool to just make the perfect snail's trail block. And we've got the 6-inch trim tool, which is what we will be using today for that project. But I want to mention, if you like bigger quilts or bigger blocks, what I'm showing you today is also possible with a larger block, and you would be picking up the square on square 8-inch trim tool if you just want a bigger block. But if you're planning to pick up this kit, limited amounts, of course, your pattern, your backing, everything will be included. Be sure to pick up the square on square 6-inch trim tool. That's the one we'll be using. If you're familiar with Creative Grid at all, or maybe you're not, they will always include an instruction booklet with their tool. But I also love that on the tool itself, they usually include a lot of information on the tool so that even if you don't have your reference guide, you have what you need to get started. So if we look at our snail's trail, it really starts off with, and this is an untrimmed block. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. We start off in the center and we just keep working in these rounds. And as we would expect with a Creative Grid tool, things are slightly oversized and we get to trim up. So this starts with the very beginning, which is this cute little 4-patch. And we have our squares here, and you're simply sewing them into a 4-patch. Nothing too challenging there. And right away, even the 4-patch itself, we will go ahead and trim up. Here, oh, let me bring that paper back actually. I want you to show you, this is where we're going to begin. We're going to trim our pieced 4-patch here. We've got our nice alignment lines where we're able to trim on those two sides. A spinning mat is great. Move just things away just a touch. And we'll trim two sides. And we're just going to rotate that. Move this away. And now what we'll do is expose the other two sides here. And I love that we get to straight away start squaring things up. So every time we add a round, we know we're starting with a perfect square every time. That helps ensure our success. It is easily one of my favorite parts about the Creative Grid really system of rulers and tools. Now this is the next step is again something where we can refer to our included pattern instruction or look at the tool. The next thing we need to do is cut two 2.5-inch squares. I've done that ahead, and I have one blue and one white. Notice that line is showing a diagonal cut. All of the layers of what we're going to be doing are showing you how many to cut and that you're going to be cutting it on the diagonal. There's a lot of repeating, but with just different size measurements. So with that instruction, we will take our fabrics, cut them on the diagonal. Now where we place them is key, and this is a thing I want to call your attention to. In order to have this rotating, this kind of swirling, These fabrics that could be placed on any one of these sides needs to be placed in a very specific location. I'm going to create a little bit of a finger crease here because I'm going to line that up with one of these seams. The question is which seam? Now let's look at our block here. Let's look at this one right here. If we orient this just like this 4-patch, you can see that blue needs to be on this side. So be sure to be very intentional about where you're positioning that so that the rotation is going the right direction and the block comes out as expected. So I gave a little bit of a finger press. I'm going to press that a little bit more because I'm trying to line up that crease with that seam right there. I'm going to sew from this side so I can keep an eye on that seam and make sure that's not going anywhere. I've got my seam guide to help me be true to my 1/4 inch. Pressing is easy. You're just going to be pressing away the entire time. Press away from the center the whole time when you're making your blocks. Now you will work on opposites. So on the opposite corner, once again, creasing that fabric with a nice finger press, wanting to line that up right with that. Flip that over, pin if you'd like, sew the 1/4 inch, press to the outside. Once you've done that, same thing over here. You're giving a finger press, kind of finger crease, lining that up right there. Again, I would be flipping this over, so I keep an eye on that seam. Same on this side, pressing to the outside. When you do that, this is what you will have right here. This is what you're coming up with. Right away, we get to now begin using the next part of our trim functions, which as we look at this, we were down here before. Now we have A1, we have A2, and you can keep making this bigger if you want to. We're going to be stopping after our B1, but let me show you now how to trim. Such a cool process of this Creative Grid tool system. See that nice white box? I'm just going to basically frame that right over top of our 4-patch, which exposes the right side and the top. Notice the dashed line right here. That's the 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's telling you that when you sew the next layers on as we proceed, that if with a perfect 1/4 inch is going to just hit that point beautifully. That is a great confirmation that you are in the right location as you're trimming your block. We just give a rotation of the tool, again framing our center, which now exposes the right side and the top. There's our dashed line, again confirming we're in our right location. So now we're ready to add, just like we were before, and per the instructions on here, 3-inch squares cut on the diagonal. So it's very much the same process. So we're here right now. So now we know that next fabric is certainly going to be the blue, will be right here. Blue, blue, white, white, pressed to the outside. That's right here where we are. Now we will go to our A2, that now we're no longer looking at the 4-patch. We're now here, framing that center, which just like before is exposing that right side and the top side. You're like, I get this. This is a cool thing. I get to oversize and square up. Yes, and that is why this is so great for beginners. You don't have to worry about having everything stitch out perfectly and you're not squaring up. You get to have this ability to oversize and square up, and you don't have to be an accomplished quilter to pull off a project like this, which I love that. Love that. So once you have this, Now you're ready to add the next round. You go back to your tool. Okay, now this is saying cut 2 3.5-inch squares, cut in the diagonal. You get the concept. As we're now building this here, this is what we've got. We are now adding this over on this side, and you're seeing how this thing is starting to swirl, and that's what this is right here, right? You can see if I place this right here, right, the baby version, now we just keep growing this. Now we're out at the B1. Now we're framing around this bigger inner portion, and once again, just as you would suspect, we're going to trim. And if my ruler shifts or I shift, no problem. All we need to do is reacclimate our position. Trim, trim. Just rotate. You know, the spinning mat is great, not an absolute necessity, but I sure love the convenience of just being able to kind of spin around the block, so to speak. So I'm centering around that inner portion, exposing the right and the top. And now we have our block going into the project. If you wanted to continue on, let me show you this on here. You could put on yet another layer, and I've got that block done ahead of time. You could keep growing this block. Now that's not fitting into the mini quilt, but with this tool, notice there's another layer of B2 here. You would now cut 2 4.5-inch squares, cut in the diagonal, and you have just a bigger block. So isn't that fun? Very easy to make the block. They go together in just no time at all. Of course, make all of your blocks, sew them together with that nice honest quarter and seam allowance, inner border, outer border, and maybe this is a fun one to go ahead and quilt right there on your home sewing machine. So thank you so much for giving me part of your day to learn how easy it is to make the snail's trail block using the square on square 6-inch trim tool. I'll see you soon.